Greetings, this is Paul from the future, and I realized that in my review, I totally forgot to mention the main premise of this game, which is that your character can create boxes. Usually there's a limit per stage, so that you're not totally abusing the system. And you use those boxes for various things, such as holding down switches, getting across gaps, etc. Sorry that I failed to mention that. Enjoy the rest of the review. Bye! Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing BoxBoy+BoxGirl for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I'm a huge fan of the original BoxBoy trilogy on the 3DS. Even though I never finished the third one, I had great respect for the first two and just never got around to reviewing them for one reason or another, so I'm gonna hopefully fix that with this game because the premise is essentially the same as it was on the 3DS, albeit there are plenty of new ideas to provide new and entertaining puzzles throughout the narrative. So, one of the first things that sets BoxBoy+BoxGirl apart from its handheld counterparts, besides the fact that it's on the big screen and on a handheld, is the fact that there are actually two stories that you have right off the bat. There's actually a third one that you can unlock after you beat the game, but I'm not going to spoil what makes that one special just in case you haven't watched the Nintendo Direct presentation and you want to be surprised. The first story has you controlling either Qbby or Qucy, which are BoxBoy and BoxGirl respectively, their actual names in the franchise. And so you get gender expression, that's cool, in a game where they're boxes, so weird video game logic. And you also have a two-player mode, where you can technically play it alone and just press the ZL and ZR buttons to switch between the characters, but it's recommended that you play this game with two players, so that one person controls Qbby and the other controls Qucy. The levels are designed cooperatively as opposed to competitively, so the only way you're going to beat a level in the two-player campaign is if both players get to the door, or if you're playing alone, then I guess you would say both boxes get to the door. Now, getting to the door is usually pretty simple. This is a puzzle platformer, so it's more so going to test your brain than it's going to test your platforming skills. Very few levels involve strict timing. In fact, the box's jumps are actually pretty limited by platforming standards. Instead, most of the challenge comes in trying to collect the optional stuff. There are usually between 1 to 4 crowns in each stage, as well as restrictions for how many boxes you should use. So oftentimes you'll get medals if you go out of your way to use as few boxes as possible, or if you try to collect all the crowns. Now, unlike the 3DS games, these are purely for cosmetic purposes and will not actually help you proceed through the game. If you do need to buy stuff that'll assist you, then you have to do it by completing stages. The fast way is the first time you clear a stage, you get a whole ton of currency, but subsequent runs, you only get 2 per stage. Suffice to say that this is also your currency for the hint system, which is offset by the fact that in the 3DS version, you had to use play coins. So this may seem like a really cheap alternative, especially if you're not much of a shopper, and you're like, well, I have like 300 thingies, and you only need 2 for a hint. Nevertheless, this helps the game feel a lot more casual. As a result, people can just jump in and out, and because this is a console handheld hybrid, if someone's on the plane, they're not going to be like, well, I need to get some exercise if I'm having trouble with a level. They can just hold down on the control stick and get their hint right away. So, in retrospect, I guess this works if people aren't set on playing this game in handheld mode. Now, visually this looks like an indie title, but it was actually published by Nintendo of all people, and developed by HAL Laboratory, which is primarily responsible for the Qbby games, as well as the first 2 Super Smash Bros. Titles. but yet it feels like it was made by just a couple of people. The graphics are very simplistic, and the music is also not particularly involved. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty catchy, but there's not a lot of it, and it doesn't really push the Switch's music capabilities to the limits. In fact, this doesn't even really feel like a Switch game at all. I feel like this could theoretically have run on the 3DS, but now that the Switch is a thing, they just said, you know what, let's just pop it on the latest system just because we can. Now, this game has a lot of content to keep you busy. The main game alone is pretty huge, but then you have the 2-player mode, plus the 3rd story, and even if you beat all of the levels in those, you still have optional challenges that you can purchase from the store, where you have to pop as many balloons as possible. There's also time trials where you complete the level as quickly as possible, with as few boxes as possible. And as if that wasn't enough, there's also plenty of options to customize. The medals that you earn from the crowns and the achievement system can be used to buy different costumes for your character. I chose to give myself long hair, so I can exhibit a little bit of my personality. You can also do stuff like mustaches, glasses, and even ridiculous stuff like a piece of bubble gum or a snorkel, just because you can. There's also helper items that you can buy from the shop. This is offset by the original releases having you buy costumes that let you have these benefits no matter where you were. So essentially the game could get pretty broken if you just kept the costumes on and never changed. The other games also had a system where you could transfer the costumes from one game to the next. So that, say you bought the original BoxBoy and didn't want to re-buy the original costume, you could just have BoxBoy and BoxBoy in the same file. However, because 3DS data is non-transferable to the Switch, the new system was just, let's just make you buy consumables that you can give yourself before the level, and if you don't want to use it for the next one, just don't. You can stack as many of these consumables on your character as you want, which actually makes this game even more broken than the 3DS counterparts, because you could only have one costume at a time. And again, making it great for casual players if they don't want to go through all the work. This is definitely the kind of game that's way more for your brains than for your brawn. So if you're looking for a simplistic platforming experience, you're likely to have a lot more fun with, say, Mario or Sonic. This one is more so for the brainiacs, the ones that really want to think, am I the smartest cube on the block? Because you're not going to get action or enemies or anything like that. You're just going to get pure genius level designs by top tier publishers that just happened to want to make this look like an indie game, which is still really cool. I should also add that while these initial levels that I'm showing you are really simple, the game gradually tries to introduce a new concept per world. So in other words, you're constantly learning new abilities. Now, whether some of these are already in Bye Bye BoxBoy, I'm not sure. But one thing that is a bit of a disappointment is that you don't get all of the abilities that you had from the previous game right away. Instead, you have to learn them. Now, maybe that's Nintendo's soft way of saying, you know what? We're just going to start from scratch now that this is on a brand new system. But I still feel like, as someone who's really used to all of the techniques in the previous game, it did feel odd that the game had to present them as though they were brand new concepts before I could actually try them. Kind of like how in Ocarina of Time you couldn't play a song even if you already knew it. You had to know it first. You couldn't use that metadata knowledge. So overall, you're going to be constantly getting a barrage of new and interesting ideas. You're also going to get a lot of content, and surprisingly, this game is not worth $60. I believe it's currently roughly between $15 and $25, which is actually a pretty reasonable price. I would pick it up for that. If you're a huge fan of the BoxBoy series, you'll find a lot to like here. The 2-player mode in particular, while I haven't completed it yet, because I like doing that with my friend Nick, offers some really unique challenges that only cooperative play would give you. But the single-player campaign is still more or less what you loved about the franchise from the beginning, but now either on the go or in handheld, which is really cool. Now, I don't know if this will be a glitch for everyone, but I did encounter several moments where the screen would occasionally darken and then brighten out of nowhere, usually when I completed a level. So I don't know if this was a problem with my TV, but I never had that problem with any other Switch title, and it was very jarring, especially when Nick and I were playing the two-player mode. There was also an instance where the game crashed on me, but thankfully that wasn't a game-breaking problem because the game autosaves very frequently, and so I didn't end up losing any progress, thankfully. However, there's no option to manual save because there's so much auto-saving, so I pray that this doesn't happen to you while you're in mid-level. Suffice to say that this is a great experience. While it may not be mind-blowing as some of the other platforming greats like Sonic and Mario, it's still a great way to exercise your creative potential by the folks that made the Qbby series. And honestly, you may even get a couple of inside references to Qbby if you know where to look. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, etc., please leave them in the comment section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and think outside the box. Bye!